Okay, so for this lecture, we will be discussing the specific lists of various conservation status, forms, or documentations required for transport of wildlife, logs, and timber, and list of related jurisprudence and laws. Okay, so the module learning outcomes at the end of the unit, the students should be able to identify the specific lists of various conservation status and their relevance to environmental laws, analyze and illustrate the forms and documentations required for transport of wildlife, logs, and timber, and recognize and understand the list of related jurisprudence and laws. So we will be discussing the IUCN Red List, CITES, Philippines Red List, forms and documentations required for transport of wildlife, logs, and timber, and related jurisprudence and laws. So describe muna natin ano bang ibig sabihin ng conservation status. So the conservation status of a group of organisms, for instance, a species, indicates whether the group still exists and how likely the group is to become extinct in the near future. Kasi nga, di ba, we have several animals or plants na pine-preserve natin. And we want them to remain in their ecosystem for as long as they can. At dahil nga ayaw natin na magkaroon ng ganito, ng extinction. So, we label them, we give them a certain conservation status para alam kung ma-extinct na ba to, malapit nang ma-extinct, or extinct na ba talaga siya. Many factors are used to assess a species conservation status, including the number remaining, the overall increase or decrease in the population over time, breeding success rates, and known threats. Then, various systems of conservation status exist and are in use at international, multi-country, national, and local levels, as well as for consumer use. Para ma-inform ang lahat kung ano nga ba ang conservation status nitong mga pinangangalagaan nating part ng ating environment. There are global and Australian systems for recognizing conservation status. So the IUCN Red List, to date, more than 93,500 species have been assessed for the IUCN Red List. Okay. The IUCN Red List of Threatened Species. So this was established in 1964. The International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List or of Threatened Species has evolved to become the world's most comprehensive information source on the global conservation status of animal, fungi, and plant species. So it is a worldwide conservation status listing and ranking system. So this is used all over the world. It divides species into 9 categories, of which the official term threatened is a subset of 3 categories: critically endangered, endangered, and vulnerable. Siguro naririnig nyo na itong mga terms na to: vulnerable species, critically endangered species, endangered species. So yun. That's how the IUCN Red List uses the terms. Okay, ito yun. Kapag EX, ibig sabihin nun, extinct na. No known living individuals. Wala na. Extinct na nga di ba? And then extinct in the wild, EW. Known only to survive in captivity or as a naturalized population outside its historic range. So kumbaga, sa kanyang natural habitat, wala na siya. May nagsusurvive na lang dahil may mga nakuha sa labas ng kanilang natural habitat. Doon sila kinikip. Then we have critically endangered, CR. Extremely high risk of extinction in the wild. Ibig sabihin, konting-konti na lang talaga sila. And then endangered, EN. A higher risk of extinction in the wild. Then we have vulnerable, high risk of extinction in the wild, and near threatened, likely to become endangered in the near future. Kumbaga, may chance na maging endangered sila. Although technically, sa present time, hindi pa sila endangered, kaya nga sila threatened lang. So near threatened, may chance na maging endangered in the future. Uh, Conservation dependent, CD, low risk. It is conserved to prevent being near threatened. Certain events may lead to it being a higher risk level. Then we have least concern, LC. Lowest risk does not qualify for a higher risk category. Widespread and abundant taxa are included in this category. Then domesticated. Domestication is a sustained multi-generational relationship in which one group of organisms assumes a significant degree of influence over the reproduction and care of another group to secure a more predictable supply of resources from that second group. Then we have data deficient, not enough data to make an assessment of its risk of extinction. Uh, Usually, ito yung sa mga dagat dahil madami pa tayong hindi alam tungkol sa environment doon sa seas. So, yun. Masasabi natin na data deficient tayo sa ibang parts doon. And then not evaluated. Kasi obvious naman yan. Hindi pa na-evaluate. Has not been evaluated against the criteria. Then we have CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Yun, CITES. Also known as the Washington Convention, which is a multilateral treaty to protect endangered plants and animals. It also lists species with the specific aim of ensuring that international trade is in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten their survival. Okay, other listing bodies in global systems. Ito naman yung ginagamit sa ibang bansa. We have nature serve conservation status. This focuses on Latin America, the United States, Canada, and the Caribbean. It has been developed by scientists from NatureServe, the Nature Conservancy, and a network of natural heritage programs in data centers. It is increasingly integrated with the Iucn Red List system. Its categories for species include presumed extinct, possibly extinct, critically imperiled, vulnerable, apparently secure, and secure. The system also allows ambiguous or uncertain ranks, including inextinct numeric ranks and range ranks, for when the exact rank is uncertain. NatureServe adds a qualifier for captive or cultivated only, which has a similar meaning to the IUCN Red List extinct and the wild status. It is used within the Red Data Book of the Russian Federation. Obvious naman, sa Russia ito. So it is used within the Russian Federation and also accepted in parts of Africa. And then sa Canada naman, Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada, COSEWIC. It is an independent committee of wildlife experts and scientists whose raison d'etre is to identify species at risk in Canada. It designates the conservation status of wildlife species. So pare-parehas lang naman sila ng trabaho, itong mga binabanggit natin. Binibigyan nila ng, identify nila kung ano na ang status ng isang species. Kung pa-extinct na ba siya, malapit ng maging threatened or whatever. Okay, so it was established in 1977 to provide a single scientifically sound classification of wildlife species at risk of extinction. In the 2002 Species at Risk Act, COSEWIC was appointed as the body to identify and assess a species status. Although the status assigned by COSEWIC is not legally binding, it does report its results to the government and the public. The report is influential toward the addition of species to the list of wildlife species at risk by the Minister of the Environment. Then we have the EPBC Act list of threatened fauna and flora. The Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act of 1999 lists threatened species, ecological communities, and threatening processes. The categories used by the EPBC Act for threatened animal species are extinct, extinct in the wild, critically endangered, endangered, vulnerable, and conservation dependent. So same sa IUCN Red List. So prior to the EPBC Act, a simpler classification system was used by the Endangered Species Protection Act of 1992. Some state and territory governments also have their own systems for conservation status. The codes for the Western Australian Conservation System are given at declared rare and priority flora list. Ito yun. It is the system by which Western Australia's conservation flora are given a priority, developed by the government of Western Australia's Department of Environment and Conservation. It was used extensively within the department, including the Western Australian Herbarium, the Herbarium's Journal, Nutsha, which has published over a quarter of the state's conservation taxa. Conservation taxa requires a conservation status to be included in all publications of new Western Australian taxa that appear to be rare or endangered. So this system defines 6 levels of priority taxa. We have X or threatened, declared rare flora, or presumed extinct taxa. These are taxa that are thought to be extinct either because they have not been collected for over 50 years, despite thorough searching, or because all known wild populations have been destroyed. They have been declared as such in accordance with the Wildlife Conservation Act 1950 and are therefore afforded legislative protection under that act. Then we also have threatened extant taxa. These are taxa that have been thoroughly surveyed and determined to be rare, in danger of extinction, or otherwise in need of special protection. They have been declared rare in accordance with the Wildlife Conservation Act of 1950 and are therefore afforded legislative protection under that act. The code for this category was previously R, but now it's letter T. Then we have P1, priority 1, poorly known taxa. These are taxa that are known from only a few, generally less than 5 populations, all of which are under immediate threat. They are candidates for declaration as rare flora, but are in need of further survey. Then we have P2, priority 2. These are taxa that are known from only a few, generally less than 5 populations, some of which are not thought to be under immediate threat. They are candidates for declaration as rare flora, but are in need of further survey. Then we have P3, priority 3, that are taxa that are known from several populations, some of which are not thought to be under immediate threat. They are candidates for declaration as rare flora, but are in need of further survey. Then we have P4, priority 4, rare taxa. These are taxa that have been adequately surveyed and are rare but not known to be under threat. Australian state governments have different systems for categorizing and listing threatened species. In New South Wales, the Department of Environment and Climate Change is responsible for administering the Threatened Species Conservation Act of 1995, and the NSW categories, New South Wales, for threatened species currently are for priority 4, species presumed extinct, endangered species, endangered population, endangered ecological community, and vulnerable species.